All right. Welcome to the USA Liberalists live stream weekly wrap up for the week of December 6, 2018. Today we're here with Matt and Rob. You go by Rob or Robert?
Rob.
Rob. All right.
I actually go by Dave. No,
Dave.
I'm
What are your pronouns? Let's get into the serious.
attack helicopter. Actually,
Of course.
I identify as an attack helicopter with the.
I'm a Tomahawk missile.
There
so,
you
know, we can team up here.
Oh shit, we're in trouble. Today we're going to talk about the passing of former President George H.W. Bush, and we'll talk about the based Frenchmen and their riots against increased taxes.
Who'd have thunk it? The French actually still have a spine.
Right?
We only consecutively saved their asses in 2 world wars, so just saying.
So, well, we're going to start with Herbert Walker Bush. I don't really remember his presidency, probably because I was born in 85. When was he president?
90 to 94?
Yeah, I think it was 90 to 94, yeah.
No, 88 to 92.
That's right, yeah.
So
yeah,
I
voted for him.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
So how was he portrayed in the media at the time?
Well, they did everything they could to, do the gotcha thing with him. However, it was a kinder and gentler time. So, seriously, it was only 70% negative and 30% positive, or let's call it 50% negative, 20% neutral, and 30% positive in those days. Nowadays, it's like 98%, you're a Nazi if your name is Trump. And, I grew up in a generation that still actually remembered hunting Nazis down in Argentina. And, my parents fought the Nazis. So you kind of can see the difference. Trump's not a Nazi.
No.
He's an idiot, but he's not a Nazi.
Yeah, there is no definition of the word Nazi that Trump fits into. Idiot, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Conservative is even kind of a stretch.
No, I don't think he. Well, the thing is what do you mean by conservative? I hate that word.
Just like what I mean by conservative is the idea, is the quintessential idea of what, like basically the prototypical conservative, like which has shifted. I agree. It's definitely shifted, and it doesn't mean anything. Those terms don't mean anything. And,
progressive and conservatives, like, what are you progressing to and what are you trying to conserve? At this point, I don't want a conservative, because if it means protecting the nanny state, you can keep it.
Right. For sure.
Well, for me, conservative means trying to conserve the original values of the founders.
Okay.
That's what it means to me, but I know not all conservatives are that way, so...
Yeah, and then of course comes the original values. You mean slavery? That always comes up at that point.
Well, of course.
Yes.
The conservatives love their slavery and their liberty.
See, that's to me.
Yeah, leave me alone so I can enslave somebody. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's the lot we've been given.
Well, like, how many people actually owned? I mean, slavery was legal, but like, how many of the average person could afford to own slaves?
Yeah, the vast majority of it was a bunch of rich people.
How about like less than? I think the top 1%. Oh, wait, those guys again.
Yep,
1%.
See, this is actually something that I when I did some research on that era, I came to find out it was just and I don't mean to meme on this, but it was just a bunch of rich white old people that owned fucking slaves. Yeah. The average person, the average Confederate soldier, really was fighting to kick the fucking government that they thought was oppressing them off their land, right? It's just unfortunately that there was an elite that existed that wanted to maintain a organization, maintain a system that allowed them to prop up owning people, and then a bunch of people who got sold some propaganda got caught in the crossfire. That's it.
What I find interesting is as that war recedes further and further into history, it becomes more and more about one issue.
Right.
And one issue only. And when you look at how people treated each other 20 years after the war and how they treat each other now, and I'm not talking about the racial, I'm talking about within across the, conservative liberal divide. I mean, every single Confederate soldier was deemed a United States veteran.
Yeah.
Now they want to bulldoze the Confederate cemeteries. And
don't do that. Don't. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's too much. Like, the whole idea, like they were a rebel, they rebelled and they shouldn't be honored and everything. Like, I partly get that, but part of me thinks too that there was some wisdom in saying, like, no, these are our brothers. Like, they want to honor their fallen dead too, and that's okay.
Well, think about how we were founded. But our nation was rebels. We
threw the fucking tea in the harbor.
Rebellious.
We threw the goddamn tea in the harbor for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. That was not exactly. Yeah. So we should honor the rebellious.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, honor I get what the average person was fighting for. They were fighting to protect, and the view people had back then was different. They were fighting to protect their individual states as opposed to the United States as an entity.
Well, there was no the United States at the time. If you look at all the documents, official and otherwise, they always referred to our nation as these United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't until after the war was done, and
that's exactly right,
that it became a single union.
Yeah, the United States.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's like when people go, all the Confederate soldiers who were officers who went to fight for the South broke their vows. Actually, they didn't. When you graduated from the military academies, you took an oath to defend your state as well as the Constitution.
Right.
You did not take an oath to the United States.
Again, that was something that was changed after the war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but the thing is the historical ignorance helps fuel the narrative.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I actually have a friend who is super deep into the history of the Civil War era, and he helped, because we had it was back during the whole conversation of whether or not the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia was a racist symbol or not, right? And
it's the cross of St. Andrews.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, I agree that one is not a racist flag because it simply represents the Army of Northern Virginia. The actual symbol of the Confederate States, the actual stars and bars, there's an argument to be made that one is a symbol of racism, but it's not something that, because the Confederate States, there were multiple issues on the whole entire forming of the Confederacy.
Well, yes, obviously all the states that wanted to keep slavery as legal left.
Right.
So you can't ignore that issue.
Right.
But the reason why the typical Confederate soldier fought most of them, they did not do it because they wanted to keep slaves.
Yeah, exactly. But the symbol of the Confederacy itself, which was the one that was created by a good chunk of the elite in the Confederacy, they chose that as a representation of their organization, which was designed to prop up slavery, which was designed to prop up and maintain that practice. So that's why I say that one is, but the one that the people associate, the standard red with the blue X, that one is not. You can make an argument. I still say we should keep those flags around. They shouldn't be burned as saying, well, this is a flag from our history. I do value history. We shouldn't just destroy it.
Well, right. I kind of get a little upset when I see them pulling down statues.
Oh yeah, ripping down a statue. A statue is not a racist symbol. Fuck off.
Right. It's a symbol, but it's what you read into it, essentially. Right. Exactly. If you read it as racist, that doesn't mean the next guy does.
For sure. Absolutely.
Well, the thing is that really what you're looking at is an exercise in projection.
Absolutely.
Well, in the Confederate battle flag, or the stars and bars or whatever, I can understand why people think it's racist, but I think it was more that people thought it was racist, and so racists started using it, and then it just kind of becomes racist in the popular imagination.
When the KKK is marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in its thousands, right around 1918, they were marching with the U.S. flag.
Right.
They weren't marching with the stars and bars.
Yeah.
And the really cool part is the largest KKK membership was in Michigan. I'm not too sure there weren't too many plantations up there.
Right, for sure.
Well,
absolutely.
In the state of Oregon, if you were African American and I think Chinese, you weren't even allowed in the state for a while. Like it was illegal for you to come here.
Wow. That's interesting.
And Oregon actually fought on the side of the Union too. So
well, just because we don't want slavery doesn't mean we want, the thing. Let's say it this way: if you go and look at which towns had allowed for and had it was not by so much by law, but people would write into the home ownership, the wills and whatnot, that if you sell the property to people who are African American or not white or Catholic, the house reverts back to its previous owner.
Wow.
And that was actually binding. And guess where that practice was most prevalent?
In the North? New England, yeah.
What, known for its rampant racism, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really crazy side note is the city I live in is actually, have you guys ever heard of Dred Scott?
Yes.
I actually live in the city where Dred Scott lived.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do they have a statue there or anything?
They have a plaque. They actually have a plaque on the building that I believe it was the U.S. colonel that owned him at that building. It was like an apartment complex. It's like an old ass building in downtown. Cool. There was one time I was down there and I was down there drinking and I was just outside smoking a cigarette and I turned and I saw this plaque and it says something like, "This is the location where Colonel something or other lived, where he owned the slave Dred Scott and blah 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 blah," and like honor his like whatever. And I was like, "Huh." I never knew. Like I knew that the city I lived in was where this whole incident happened, right? I just didn't know the exact building.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and that kind of leads over to like how people kind of view history as like a sort of black and white or us and them sort of thing.
Exactly.
Like, oh, the North was all, great and freedom and liberty, and the South were just evil racists. And it's very much not that way. It was very gray.
Well, the thing is that what's lost in all this is if you follow a lot of this had to do follow the money. Yeah. The North was imposing tariffs on Southern exports because the North was not an export economy. The South was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so there was a lot more to this. And the problem is when you collapse everything onto a single axis, racist, not racist,
right,
you turn the whole thing into a cartoon. And when you turn reality into a cartoon, it stops being history or news. It becomes propaganda.
Yeah. I will say that, like, I will say that the major, like, division point was the idea behind a portion of the country owning slaves, but like that wasn't the only one. I completely agree that that wasn't the only one, because one of the things I looked up was a lot of like the letters of succession from all the states, like within like the first like I think I saw Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and like North Carolina. Within like the first paragraph, they state clearly that this is because they feel that the North is trying to impose on them their view of how they want to live, and they reject that because they want them to get rid of their slaves. Like that's it. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying that there wasn't other issues, but like it was one of the core issues. They're like, no, fuck off. You're not going to tell us how to live our lives.
Yeah.
And it was
Ben Shapiro kind of was talking about something similar to this, and he phrased it really well, that they were fighting for what is it? Like not individual liberty, but states' rights or self-determination. But the self-determination that they were fighting for was slavery.
Right. Exactly.
So it's like
they were fighting for the capability to make their own laws.
Yeah.
And prop up an institution that was
they were
owning a person. So
they were appealing to the higher principle.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the idea of federalism has the states' rights embedded in it. Unfortunately, that was used by the Southern elites to prop up what is effectively an evil institution.
Right.
And so guess what? We threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you used you used a good idea to prop up a shithead one. People get to burn the good idea.
Right.
And let's kind of get back. We started.
Let's hop the right track
with Herbert Walker Bush.
Herbert Walker Bush, yes.
Aside from the fact that probably his family was shipping Africans to the ports, I don't think he's got too much to do with this issue.
No.
Right.
No, but I don't know personally. I don't know too much about his presidency. Like I said, I was probably 8 when he left office. 7.
Everybody elected him because they wanted another 4 years of Reagan.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
And the problem is he was the representative, and his son are the representatives, the leaders, as you will, of the wing of the party that hated Reagan.
They were the anti-Trumpers of their time.
I guess they were the anti-Reagans, and of course, Reagan, is still probably the most popular president in the last 50 years.
Yeah,
and for good reason. And so everybody, when you talk to any Republican now who was so much as an adult back then, they all talk about how great Reagan is and how much they love Reagan. These sons of bitches did everything they could to undermine what he was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if this sounds familiar, it should sound.
Should read up my history a little more, I think.
Yeah. The difference is unlike Cheeto Jesus, Reagan was not an idiot.
Yeah, and he had a way. Reagan had a way about him, which I think Trump has some of this too. They have like this charisma that you just, I don't know. Like when I watch Trump, I just can't fucking help but like laugh at his jokes. Or
that's because you enjoy watching a train wreck.
Well, yeah, there's that, but like he's just got like this personality about him, you know. That's just like and that's charisma.
When Trump, you know, like when they asked him like point blank, why do you call women whales or whatever it was and fat beasts? And his answer was one that no other politician would have thought to say. No, I don't say that. I only talk about Rosie O'Donnell that way.
And that's fucking funny.
Yeah. Like, guess what?
Yeah.
3/4 of the country, even at that point, the issue went away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Ben Shapiro when he says there's good Trump and bad Trump. Trump absolutely understands the idea of memes. Like he gets it. And he fucking uses that power religiously sometimes. And then sometimes he just sticks his fucking head out and says some outlandish dumb shit. And it's like, come on, where's the good shit? Where's the good fucking funny shit that just makes me...
What it is he could probably teach a master class in how to Twitter.
Yeah.
And some of it sometimes, and I'm believing it less and less, but there was a while there I was wondering, is some of the dumb crap kind of like a way of preparing for something later? But right. I'm not there anymore.
The 4D chess.
Yeah, he's not playing 4D underwater basket weaving chess like that. Yeah, definitely not a thing.
No,
I think with Trump, I think I heard this from Jordan Peterson. I wish it was my own idea, but he said that people voted for Trump as opposed to Hillary because they wanted the sincere liar as opposed to the practiced liar or something like that. Like if he lies, but it's because he's sincere about it. Like
he wants you to believe. He actually wants you to believe in a better idea. Like it's lying with a purpose that's supposed to like make you feel good about it. He's like, it's an ego play. It's like when you look in a mirror and you realize that you're a fat piece of shit, and you tell yourself you're not a fat piece of shit. You're lying to yourself, but it's to kind of like prop you up and get you through the day type of shit.
I don't know. I think with Trump, it's just half the time he's not paying attention to what he's saying.
For sure. Like, that's absolutely
I'm serious. It's like, I mean, I remember growing up, it was like there's some guys on the street corner, we'd all be hanging out, and one guy's just running his mouth. And Trump is just a smart version of the guy who's just talking shit.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand he's a New York businessman, right? So like that idea of kind of running your mouth a little bit has gotten him where he's at.
Yeah.
So he's not going to give it up.
And he's always had fuck you money.
Yeah.
So he can just say whatever he wants.
Yeah. And the other part of it is that he's not a politician.
No, hell no.
Absolutely
not.
And
when I say he's not a politician, it's not that he's not seeking political office, political power. It's just that so many of the people that we have watched since the 60s are all the product of what happened with Kennedy and Nixon in their election in 1960.
Right. Yeah, the first actual televised shit like that.
Very careful with what they say. Everybody's got to look good all the time. Everybody's got to take out the designer everything, which I'm still trying to look. Knowing all that, I'm still trying to figure out who was in charge of choosing the muumuus that Hillary was wearing. And if it wasn't a muumuu, it was like, great, you look like the villain from that, Shagalicious movie. I mean, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I don't know who her stylist was, but
I don't know. But it would have been perfect if somebody who's a midget and a Republican would have trolled her with that, walking behind her with a pinky on his lip, wearing the same pantsuit outfit.
When she runs in 2020, we'll do that.
Oh my God! Yes. God. The Liberalists, we will become the anti-Hillary meme factory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a fucking card-carrying Democrat, and my response is to Hillary, no, whatever you do, just fuck off, please fuck off.
Right. Like even my wife is that way too. And she was like, no, like, I don't care.
You tried twice and you got your ass kicked both times. Like even George Foreman, after he got his ass kicked a couple times, was like, I think I should probably stop.
Right.
Except George Foreman looks better.
Right.
He had something of value. He had some
By the way, has anybody been able to figure out what illness that she had? Because the woman could not handle stairs. There was that guy standing next to her all the freaking time, you know, and it looked like he had like a syringe. God knows.
There's some crazy crackpot theories of like her eating human beings and like whatever that disease is that you get for being a cannibal. I'm like, you guys are lunatics.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
I've never heard that one.
I believe it.
That's an image I will not be able to get out of my head for the rest of the conversation tonight.
I don't believe that. I have to officially.
Let's combine that with Pizzagate. So I will have a pizza with little baby parts.
That's why they want the caravans to come in. You're hungry.
Oh my God, that's right. That's why we want all the immigrant children.
I order the Mexican food. Parts of the internet, right? And I found that one. I was like, who thinks this is right? Like, what kind of lunatic do you have to be in your own head to think that this is a rational idea? I was just like,
flat earther.
Yeah.
Wait. By the way, I have my own theory about the flat earthers. I think it's a 4chan troll.
It's just an elaborate fucking troll.
It's an elaborate. We're talking about more weaponized autism. They just don't have anything to destroy right now because
so they're just going
to has finally gone underground.
We'll have to find something to direct that at.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, it's going to come out like in 10 years. All you fuckers who spent all this time rebuffing us, you know, we got the joke's on you.
Well, what about that guy who built his own rocket and tried to launch himself into space to prove that was awesome? We'll get some good memes out of it at least.
Oh, let's put it this way. You know it's really bad out there when you're reading articles and you don't know for sure if you're reading The Onion.
Yeah, or Babylon Bee. It also gets bad. I wrote some parody articles for my blog, and then like a year later, I was reading a different article, an actual news article, and I was like, I've read this before, and I was like, no, I wrote this like a year ago as a joke. Yeah, a guy at work sent me something about how he sent me a parody story of how a guy got off for murder because he identified as a lion and he was just hunting. And because he identified as an animal, the judge was like, well, we can't try a lion. That's not allowed.
By the way, I think a lot of the harm to this country has been done by the judiciary. So can we start off by just expunging them? I mean, seriously, the judiciary, I think, is a big part of why we are where we're at.
Right.
They are the enablers. They allow Congress to get off the hook and not write laws that are specific, that answer specific issues. So that's why we get one law a year, and it's like 5,000 pages, and it allows a judge to basically create the law.
Yeah, I can see that. We have to kind of address.
They should just send it back. They should say, "This is crap. Try again. You're not allowed to write a law that's more than 50 pages. You can use crayon, but it can't be more than 50 pages."
I'd even make it smaller than that, but yeah.
I'm trying to.
I would love to see that
3,000-page bills. Okay, you're right. Well, it should probably only be 10 pages.
The like 3,000-page bills, and you only got 24 hours to read it, and then we're gonna vote on it.
I actually tried to do that with the actual health care bill. I said, okay, let's see if this is even possible. Like, I'm not going to do anything else because I was that angry about it. And I got to page 600, and it's not as hard as it sounds because these things are like double spaced and like 12-point font with 3-inch margins. I mean, it's not a lot on one page. But all right, maybe not a 3, maybe only an 1.5 inch margin on each side. But
yeah,
but I got to like in the 600s, and I realized they haven't said anything yet.
Right, they're just addressing all the surrounding legislation.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, I think what it is what will work when the body of law that is remembered, because we didn't start writing down all the court cases until the last few hundred years, is small. You can use precedents.
Yeah.
But we're now at the point where the number of court cases that get decided every year, however many years, it's going up exponentially. What does it even all mean? Because you can find a precedent that favors your outcome at this point. You'll find them. You just got to have a good enough. Lawyers don't use Google. They use something else that's LexisNexis or something like that. And they'll find it. And so what does precedence even mean anymore?
Well, yeah, I think we need like some sort of like law code reform or some sort of. We need the other two branches of government to step up and take some of the power back from the judiciary, and we also need the freaking Congress to step up and take some power back from the executive as well.
Well, the thing is the law. I don't know when they did this. It was probably about 100 years ago now. We went from having one representative for every 30 to 50,000 people. Now we've got states where there are 2 senators and 1 representative. If we went back to 1 per 30,000, we would finally have enough congressmen to actually oversee this $4 trillion budget.
Oh, you mean they changed it for the
I don't know
population.
Why. I guess the building was getting too small and they didn't want to have to put it. I was having them meet in a hockey rink someplace.
The Superdome or something. I don't know. Just an open field. It's plenty of room.
Hey, what happened to the attack helicopter? He's gotten quiet.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm in the process of actually setting up something for the LIA. So.
Okay.
I'm doing work while I'm talking.
I forgot what I was going to say now. Well,
I said they should meet in a hockey ring, and then I got distracted and you said something. I apologize.
No worries. Because it's kind of weird that like Montana only has 3 representatives and everybody gets 2. That's what I hate. Everybody gets 2 from for the House. I always get them confused.
No. Everybody gets a minimum of 2 for the Senate, and
2 for the Senate.
Now you need like 500,000 people to get to raid a congressman.
Yeah.
So now think about it this way: if we had 1 every 30,000, you would have a much broader diversity of political opinions. You also would not be able to have a Nancy Pelosi actually ride herd on this group. You know what I mean? It's just too many people.
Well, yeah.
It all works. It's when it's 500 people, you can exert that influence and you can force people into a mold. If we would have 5,000-6,000 of these guys, 1, you couldn't bribe them all, or be a lot harder, and 2, you would have factions, and you might actually get something actually done that way.
That's true. Those you have to kind of worry about too if it gets so big that, I mean, like, well, we have this problem now that nothing gets done, but
how's it going to be?
If it's so big, like how do you have like a conversation among
when you have
5,000
1 congressman for 30,000 people? You can actually, 1, figure out where your congressman lives. 2, there's a whole lot of good things that start happening. There's actually enough congressmen their primary job is not just write laws, but to oversee the actions of the executive. Oversight. of spending. There is no way in hell when these guys are fundraising 40 hours a week that with the remaining 40 hours a week, because they actually also have to sleep at some point,
they're not all robots.
They are able to perform proper oversight of the executive and the judiciary. It's not happening. Not with 400 of these guys. Not when you got a $4 trillion budget. Not when you've got like 10,000 different federal installations covering the United States. It's not happening. There's no oversight.
Well, and this is like, that's one of the things that I don't like about the whole the national popular vote movement is that they try to make the argument, oh, Montana, like each person in Montana, because there's fewer of them, their vote counts for this much more than a person in California. And I'm like, are you kidding?
You're looking at Democrats who don't like the system that has been set up, and they have basically managed to alienate, because of a whole host of reasons, large swaths of the country that happen to be sparsely populated. And all the immigrants that are illegal are moving into the, I mean, California, how many of those votes are actually non-citizen votes?
Oh, I don't know. Non-citizens can vote in some school board elections there.
Yeah, no. You know, it's really kind of like, guys, you mess this up. You're messing with the actual franchise.
Absolutely.
If people really stop believing that the vote is legit, I mean, to the point where it's like, this was flat out stolen and there's nothing, you know, it's the alternative to a vote is force. We don't want to go there.
No, I don't think we want to go there either. I mean, you can see what's happening in France right now, to segue to that topic.
Yeah.
The government, or Macron, I guess he's getting the brunt of the ire. He wants to curb climate change, and in order to do so, he's going to prevent average people from purchasing gasoline to, you know, like go to work, because the average person needs to be taxed more because of climate change.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. You're not going to stop climate change with that kind of a deal.
Right.
Well, yeah, you're not going to stop it by taxing the working class.
You're not going to stop it. I mean, when you think about how many joules we expend and how many joules the Earth gets hit with every hour by the sun, there's a first order effect, and then there's like 5 orders of magnitude less. That's where we are, you know, if that. So it's got a lot more to do with what is the sun up to than anything we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that human beings do have impact on the environment. I don't think anyone's...
No. I'm not saying we don't have any impact on the environment, but the global temperature is probably not one of them.
Well, the measures that
polluting the air, that kind of we can have devastating local impacts, but I don't think we're having a, you know, think about it. Most of the world is empty.
Yeah, most of the world is ocean.
Exactly. Not too many SUVs driving around the middle of the Atlantic last I looked.
Yeah, but I think that the problem I have with climate change is the policies prescribed in order to correct it. And
yeah, I remember
they don't weigh the costs.
Yeah. Well, I remember these policies had a name. They used to call them watermelon policies. They were green on the outside, but red on the inside. That's what they used to call it back in the early 90s when the shit first came up.
For communists?
Well, I don't think the red here has anything to do with Republicans.
Yeah, it's... Well, in France, the Communist Party. Let's see, I wrote this down. The Socialist Party, also known as the Defiant France Party, they're the far left, and then the Communist Party apparently don't like each other, but they're setting aside their differences, and promising to submit a request of no confidence in Macron and try to get his government removed from power.
Wow.
So yeah, I heard they're supposed to do that Monday.
Macron is kind of like, I haven't been around this for a while, and I'm still recovering from the school. What's the name of the idiot who's the current premier of Canada?
Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, Macron, I think, makes Trudeau look like a genius. We just, we're too far away to see how dumb he is.
Well, Macron, I think the biggest problem with Macron is that he is representative of the elite, the globalist, and I don't mean Jewish when I say globalists.
Racist, you.
Yeah, anti-Semite all the way.
Yep.
He kind of represents that sort of elite class who's highly educated and honestly, believe they know best.
That's reflecting our politics, because let's face it, I think really the rejection of Hillary was a rejection of the globalist, internationalist, let's dissolve the borders and sing Kumbaya. But everybody who's actually a working stiff knows who gets screwed in that one, and it ain't the elites.
Right.
Okay, let's face it, if the people coming across the Rio Grande were all potential writers for the New York Times, I could tell you that editorial page would look very different.
Yeah, and I work in a production plant now, and we're kind of feeling the pinch from both ends, that we have to compete with factories in China and Mexico, and we ship product to Mexico to be put into automobiles like trucks and what have you, and then those get shipped back to the United States and sold here because it's cheaper to build it all down there. And then we're also feeling the pinch on, because we import rubber and silicone. And so some of the tariffs kind of give us pause too. And so
it's all interconnected. The question is, how do I put this? People talk about the fact that wages for the working class have not been going up since the 70s at a rate that's keeping pace with everything. And we've reached the point, especially in the very expensive areas in California, Oregon, and Seattle, where you can be working, let's say, I work as a waiter, and my wife, let's say, would be working as a cash register girl. People like that used to be able to buy a house.
Right.
A very modest house, but a house. And then raise their kids who went to college. You have those two jobs right now, you're living, in a basement if you're in suburbia, or you're living in a tiny little walk-up, and you're barely making it.
In an apartment with 3 other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and here in Oregon, in Portland specifically, I talked to some of my friends who live in Portland and rent, and their rent is more than my mortgage on my house, and I'm just outside the city.
Right.
Portland. Yeah. I'm in Beaverton.
Yeah. Well, rents are sky high right now, I think, nationwide, because a lot of people are not realizing that back when we had the crash 9 years ago in the housing market, a lot of people defaulted on their home loans. Those people will never get another bank loan. You understand? So the rents are going for a long time.
Well, yeah, that's when I bought my house, and the luckily I was able to afford it, but I had to get like 2 roommates to live with me and pay rent, and then I had to work. Well, I worked. They only let me work 40 hours a week, but there was a point too where I had to work 2 jobs just to keep my house, and the value kept going down, and so I owed more than the house was worth. But
you're underwater.
Made the decision not to move, and now the value of homes is going up. At least around here, it's going up pretty high, and so it kind of paid off in the long run to kind of just hold tight for me. But it's still sad that there's other people my age who are working like a 40 hours every week, and they're being crushed by student loan debt because they were told you have to go to college or else you're not going to get a good job. You have to go to college, and then they get an apartment and they can't get anything with their degree because everybody has one. The market is saturated with
right. Well, let's put it this way. It always tells you that the market is you can always tell the market is saturated for labor when you start seeing a bimodal distribution. It's like the market is hugely saturated for, let's say, baseball players. You got guys who play AA ball and they make $7,000 a year, and then you got the majors making millions. That's a classic situation where, you know, we don't need you. We got many.
Well, yeah, and that'll keep wages down, and and part of it too is that people they're told to go to college, but there's not really any information on what you should go to college for. People are just told, "Oh, just do what you like or do what you love," and
you know what you could do? You could actually just go to a trade school, spend almost no money. And or an even better idea is apply as an apprentice at like your local plumbers and pipe fitters union.
Yeah,
even better idea because they need a fuck ton of those people.
Well, yeah, they're always looking for tradesmen. All the time, and it pays well. You know,
pays amazingly well. I know a friend who is basically effectively a handyman, right? Who works out of the local Teamsters union, and he works on a military there's a military base where I live at, and he's like the guy that goes and changes the light bulbs and like fucking like that type of shit, and he is an apprentice for the laborer, right? But it's one of those things, he's still learning a trade, and because he's working as part of the union and the negotiated union contracts for that, he gets paid a decent wage for doing that. And that's part of the reason why I actually believe in like the original core ideas of what labor unions stood for, right? Not what they've become, because they're just an abortion of fucking corruption and regressive fucking politics.
Right. I'm a laissez-faire liberal economist. I don't like using the word capitalism because Marx actually invented the term. So, but as far as I'm concerned, a labor union, when there is no compulsion by the state to have to join it. And so long as the state stays out of the negotiations, and so long as the state only is there to make sure violence doesn't break out, I'm cool with a labor union. I don't have any problem with a labor union so long as it's a free association.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I have a major issue is because what ended up happening is when you start running into like right to work and shit like that, I understand why the right to work laws were created, because what was happening was the labor unions were starting to create closed shops and forcing people to have these jobs, and it was only you either join the union or you don't get the fucking job here. I don't agree with that. Right to work.
Right. That's why I support right to work.
Well, no, listen, the issue with right to work is the unfortunate part about that is the labor union is also forced to represent people that that don't contribute to the union in right to work states. So the union is also not free to operate how it sees fit either.
Right. Well, the thing is it's kind of always when what happened was right to work was a reaction to 40 years of every strike being supported by the government.
Right.
And industry after industry after industry fled the country because of that. And so the reaction now is, you've got, when you start writing the right to work, they're going to make sure that they deball, pardon the language, the unions as much as possible, because they've become nothing more than the ground troops for the Democratic Party.
Sure, I can agree with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and what I don't like, going to your point of the union being depowered because people have the right to work, I would say that I would prefer to err on the side of the individual as opposed to the collective, and saying that the union should have the ability to say you have to be a member or you can't work here. And I don't think you were trying to say that. I do get your point that the union does need people to support it in order for it to collectively bargain. But I don't think the individual should be forced to join the union.
I agree. And I'm also a card carrying member of a labor union, and I'm like, if we could get rid of right to work and like keep the fucking unions, like I would much rather write a law that says that you can't like just basically say that no workplace can be solely a union shop, that it has to an individual is free to join a union as they see fit, and then just let them compete. Because when a labor union gets to say to somebody, right, you get to go to, like, you don't get to participate in our contract because you said you didn't want to join us. You get to go talk to the company on your own and negotiate your wages as you see fit. You don't get to get any of our benefits, any of that, because you don't choose to participate in the group, in the collective bargaining process. And I would be completely on board with that. Like
the Costco model. You don't get a shop here unless you're
exactly.
member.
Not get to participate in the benefits that we've negotiated for our members by binding together in a collective to negotiate for our labor wages, unless you do that. If you feel that you as an individual have the capability to negotiate with the company, you should be free to do that. And unfortunately, that idea does not exist in the modern day labor unions. I actually ran for my local's union president spot to kind of like bring it back to like start to move towards that idea.
Right. The thing is the problem with the unions nowadays, it's always, how do we help get Democrats elected?
Right. And I will say this, because again,
and here's a really cool part. If you really want to look at it, I think something interesting has happened, and I think Trump is the symptom, and is in a way a grotesque model of things to come.
Mm-hmm.
In that the Democratic Party has become the party of the elites. Sure. And the Republicans are stuck with being the party of the working man. The problem is that the elites at the top of the Republican structure
have no fucking clue how to handle that.
Yeah, they don't
know.
Not only
they don't know how to handle it, they don't want them.
Yeah.
They still remember back in the good old days when they represented the elites. And guess what? You're gonna see a reversal in the two parties within 20 years. That'll be complete. The only way that the Democrats are gonna make it work is by painting everybody who's not a Democrat as a racist.
Yeah,
and that's gonna backfire.
Hard. Well, backfire. Really fucking hard.
Well, my problem with the unions, like especially around here where I live, is that the public sector unions are the ones I have the biggest problem with.
Even Democrats were against those. I'm like, what the hell is that about?
Well, I just don't think that you should be able to collectively bargain with elected representatives who then you can turn around and donate to for their campaigns.
Right. Well, no, that's when basically what it is when the union becomes a voting block and you're bargaining with the state, you're basically paying the representatives of the state
to give you what you want.
Favorable contract. It's kind of like the union slipping money under the table to the negotiator for the company to give them a better deal.
Yeah, no.
Well, yeah.
Hell.
The way I see it is that it's sort of like money laundering our taxes back to Democrat politicians, because teachers unions will negotiate for higher wages, which is great for the teachers. And, I think teachers should be paid more personally, but then the union gets more dues, and then they donate those dues to the political party, the Democrats typically. So the tax dollars that are going to pay the teachers are then being taken off by the unions and then being donated back to the Democrats who are already elected in office.
I actually.
One more thing that I would do is I would also really would like to see the unions. How do I put it? The union shop. Let's say at where you said you worked in some sort of manufacturing.
Yeah.
So if that union shop was about the workers in that shop and had little to do with any international or statewide or any other organization, I think that would be far better, because
I could agree with that.
Their political aspirations would be far more muted, and they would focus on the business at hand of the collective bargaining with the company. And they also would probably then recognize that you don't want to kill the company.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say, is that the union has a stake in making sure the company is successful, where the public sector union, you can always just print more money.
Couldn't fucking care less.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I can kind of understand a little bit, like I can get behind a little bit of the idea of the public sector, because you actually brought up a good point. I never actually thought about it, the idea behind public sector union negotiating with politicians that they then vote for and donate. But like, that's, I just never even thought about it like that. Because like,
I don't know. You know what?
The fact that you never thought about it tells me that maybe that you're not dumb. That you never thought about it that way blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it works directly that way, but there's the unions do donate to Democrat politicians.
Oh, I know that for a fact. I was actually on one of the political campaigns for the local that participated in our local elections. Absolutely, I know that.
and they're the ones who, I guess, they don't directly negotiate with the elected politicians, but they're the ones who approve the budget.
Yeah, right. Yes, absolutely.
And so they're like,
I was one of those people. I was one of those people that said this proposition right here needs to. It was like a whole entire interview process with the local officials that we would bring in, and it was just like a fucking interview process where we had a list of questions, a questionnaire, all of it, and just positions that they would take. And then what happened was our recommendation from this committee got forwarded up to the local federation of like basically it was an entire federation of labor where all of the major unions in the area worked together in, and then that group was what that federation of labor was the one that donated the money to the campaigns.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's political money laundering.
I wouldn't go that far, but it is definitely something
it's similar. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Okay. If you wouldn't call it political money laundering, what would you call it? Because it's cash under the table. No matter how you look at it.
Oh, it's corrupt as fuck.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Then it's money laundering.
Money laundering entails that you're cleaning cash, but like it's a technical definition. But like I agree that it's corruption.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's not corruption. The cash isn't illegal at first.
I'll give you this. It's corrupt as fuck. However, is not really a legal definition that I can sink my teeth into. Right. Whereas money laundering, I understand.
Yeah, that's my biggest beef with public sector unions is that. And when people talk about, normally when they talk about, oh, we need to get money out of politics, they're often talking about like big business and corporation, but they never mention
but they never talk about You want to know something? If you look at like the biggest donations from all the corporations, those tend to go in both directions, both red and blue.
Absolutely. And if there was a way that I could figure out how to drain the money from both sides on that, I would support any legislation that did that completely. Because like you got like it's a nuclear arms race is what it is, effectively. Yes. Because you have big business donating money, and then you have the unions that have to counteract that, and like sometimes they overstep, and then the business have to counteract that, and it just keeps going up and up and up and up.
Well, honestly, it's because big business has been donating so evenly. Mm-hmm. That's why the Democrats have become the party of the elites.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I will tell you this though. One of the things that kind of after the 2016 election, and I can't speak to like the grand scale of organized labor in the entire U.S., but there were a number of people that were also on that committee with me that were fucking pissed off at the Democratic Party, right? So if
for what?
Because of the betrayal on the idea, like they've been basically speaking lip service to organized labor and taking our money and not really reinforcing a good chunk of organized labor's.
Okay, how about a couple of really public slaps in the face? The pipeline.
Yep.
What they've been doing to like crush. I mean, they make it we had to close the last lead smelter in this country. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so who's winning the argument? Well, the greenies are. Wait a minute. How many greenies are there? Not many. Mm-hmm. But how many people who want to make a living with their hands don't feel like getting a degree in underwater basket weaving from the local college and then working a fucking Starbucks?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those are Starbucks degrees.
Yeah,
except
absolutely.
that now the kid who graduated high school and went to work in Starbucks for 4 years, he's now the manager.
Right.
And you just graduated, you're 22, you got $60,000 in debt, and he could live comfortably on $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
You are starving.
Yeah, and he could be regional manager in another year.
And that's another cool key point to bring up is the idea that being a regional manager of a Starbucks is just not that glamorous job, but it pays the fucking bills. And understanding that putting your ass to work and working your ass up through a company to do a job that you make a decent money, like that just is mind-boggling to people. They want it snap, instant gratification. Go get a fucking job, go to college, get a degree, get a job. Like you have to, if you want to go that route, you have to pick certain specific fucking sectors to get a degree.
If you're in college and you're not getting a STEM degree,
you're doing it wrong. You're completely doing it completely wrong.
And the thing is by the way, I will put psychology and a few of these other if you're in college and you're getting an art history degree, you might as well go work as a barista.
Yeah. The fucking college degree is not worth the paper it's printed on. Like,
or if you're getting anything in art, no great artist ever went to college to study art.
Right.
They went and fucking did art.
I mean, look at that guy. What's his name? He's like, think about it. Art, the avant-garde art.
I actually just got a notification that CNN's New York offices were evacuated due to a bomb threat.
Again?
They're not worth bombing.
This is from WGN. Let me post the article here real quick.
Oh, I got something funny for you. By the way, speaking of global warming and all that other crap, here you go. the Ocasio is going to be a gold mine of memes. And
is this like
Democrat, if I was you,
bullshit for her like new Green Deal bullshit? The Green New Deal. This thing is fucking garbage.
The thing is this is the face of the Democratic Party in the future,
and it needs to be burnt to a crisp.
Because it has nothing to do with its labor roots.
Right.
Nothing.
Exactly. Not a goddamn thing. And that's actually kind of the point, is that organized labor, if what I experienced in the last 2016 election, organized labor is pissed off at the Democratic Party, right? And if
but the thing is they'll never go to the Republicans, or at least not this generation will.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, is it's going to be a generational shift.
How do I put this? It's just like the African American community. So long as you're voting 90% plus or giving 90% plus of your money to one party, the party that gets the money is going to take you for granted. The party that gets your vote takes you for granted.
Absolutely.
You've got to be a whore. It's politics. So it's okay. If it was a 60-40 split, the Democrats would be working like dogs to get back that 40%.
Right.
And so, as far as I'm concerned, organized labor is stupid or corrupt or both.
I could go with that. I could definitely go with that. And I'm like one of the few people that kind of, like, in my area that's like, no, we need to fix our shit. like I try to be one of the good people that be like, no. Like, we need to set identity politics to the side. All right. We also need to set away this idea and actually get back to the idea.
I'm sorry. People are not racist because they don't want to have unlimited immigration.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's a bullshit argument.
That is a bullshit argument. I've actually gotten into an argument with the local president over that bullshit in our fucking meetings. And I'll sit there and I'll argue with her. And there's been a couple times that I've been told to shut the fuck up. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, okay, I guess my money just isn't good enough to be here, right? Oh, wait, it is. It buys me a seat here, so you guys are going to sit the fuck there and going to listen to what I got to say. God
you damn privileged white attack helicopter.
You know, I'd love to see what they'd make of me. Because think about it. It's like, I hate everything they represent because it's, one, they've hitched their wagons to politics.
Yep.
Two, their policies have nothing to do as far as what's good for the worker. Three, frankly, labor unions won.
Yeah.
The 40-hour work week.
Yep.
All of the labor safety rules.
Yep.
All of that benefits. All that shit was shit that the labor units pushed. What's left? Everybody. What's left?
Oh, there's nothing.
Arguing for better wages and protecting the jobs of those people who are there as far as let's keep the company healthy.
Yeah.
They don't do that.
Yep. No, they've shifted and tried. It's the same thing that happens on the left, is once you get what you want, they still try to put, it's the same thing that happened with the feminists, right? Because if you look back and the first wave, it's kind of a kooky idea, but there were legitimate complaints to actually fucking make. Women couldn't vote. That's bullshit. Like, just I don't
know. We can get the result. I'm starting to wonder. Just kidding.
But it's, if you look at it from the perspective that they're still human beings and they deserve the right to vote and voice their own opinions in democracy and a democratic society.
Realize that the great Greek philosophers actually had a discussion as to whether or not women were fully human, and they took a vote on it. Women made it in by a very small margin.
Those Greeks, man.
What do you want?
But yeah, like, then you have the second wave, which was cooked up some even more kookier crackpot ideas, right? But again, they had legitimate complaints where they were saying, like, we just want the right to be able to go to work. We want, like, to not be treated like sex objects. And, like, you're like, okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Then you have the evolution of the third wave happening. Like, this is just fucking ridiculous because you guys got everything that made you equal to the quote unquote men, right? And now they're pushing into insanity, right? And the labor unions do the same goddamn thing.
Well, yeah, we talked about this last week.
No, it's gone beyond that. I work as an engineer, okay? And let's say, and of course, that's one of the professions where look how privileged you are. Okay, here I am. I was working for a larger company at one point.
Right.
It's nine out of 10 of the engineers are men.
Right.
Okay. Half the managers are women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want to tell me that half of the best engineers are women, or are we just trying to stop a lawsuit?
Right.
And why is it that when we hire a new engineer, if it's a female for the same position, she gets paid more? Because she's like a unicorn. Kind of rare.
She fits the quota.
She helps with the quota. She stops there's all sorts of goodness to hire her, regardless of what her cum or how she interviewed or anything. Okay, it's a female. Boom. Check the box.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's there's so much evidence as to why people go into their professions. And I got news for you. There's not some vast conspiracy of engineers trying to keep the women out. You know,
I don't think there are vast conspiracies
most of them
much
are
of
too busy
anything.
looking at their shoes. They're too shy to have a conspiracy. They don't even talk to each other.
Right. Only when they have to.
Well, yeah, and then for as short a period as possible.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, most efficient period if possible.
That's the claim. Is the conversation awkward? Why, yes, we're having a conversation.
We had a little bit of this conversation last week too, where I was saying that you get these activist organizations, and it happens to all of them. And I guess you could include labor unions, but then I guess you could include just about any sort of organization that they'll be founded and they'll have an honest aim and something that's good. And then once they build up all the machinery to like promote that message and to get it out and to get people persuaded and to educate people, and then they actually succeed, then they have all this stuff built up and they're like, well, I'm not going to give this up. Like, what else can we push for?
Greasing the machine.
Right. And it's
the classic moving the goalposts. The problem is very quickly you move past reasonable into insanity.
Right.
Well, and that's why you hear I don't know, I'm a history buff, but so I really like these kind of tales, like the stories of Cincinnatus, who he gave up the power. Like when he had ultimate power, he gave it up, and that's why some of the founders were really. I mean, we have Cincinnati, a whole city named after him because of this.
What was George Washington did? They offered him the crown, and he said no.
Yeah, there's like a lack of humility, or like we've done enough, you know. Like we've done our part. We got to let the next generation pick up their standard and do.
Yeah. Some of these organizations and like kind of the idea I have on like the liberalist movement as a whole is once we wrench it back to middle, we'll always have people that will try to wrench it back the other way. And the most that we'll need at that point is station keeping. So like we should always be able to reduce the machine down to basically like a skeleton crew. That's like we all have the red buttons that we slap. It was like, hey, there's a fucking piece of shit coming in, and just hit the red button, and the whole machine comes back together.
Voltron.
Yeah, exactly. The Voltrons are reassembled.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, instead what we got is problem.
That people don't understand like when to quit, you know.
Right.
And I think part of that has to deal with it's just like a cultural thing. Like, and Americans, and I don't know, probably the West generally, is we don't really have like we don't confront death. We want to be young forever, and we want to, you know, have our party, our life be a party all the time.
Right.
And so we don't have the humility, or like, you know, I'm going to die at some point, so maybe I should plan things for my family or people who are going to come after me. It's what can I get now?
Right.
And I think that's probably part of the reason why someone like Jordan Peterson is so popular, is because he speaks to that sort of like responsibility and like greater
we've
narrative.
been talking about freedom since the 60s. And one of the things that a lot of people who have a quote-unquote conservative bent, or at least let's call it a classical liberal bent, or a sensible bent, is that's really great. But what about your responsibilities?
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the things Jordan Peterson says a lot is like, you always hear about rights, but you never hear about responsibilities.
Yeah.
And it's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Rights and Responsibilities.
Well, yes. But the thing was, back then, life was so damn hard that you didn't have to spell out the responsibilities, because if you didn't fulfill them, you wound up dead in a ditch within a week. Okay?
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, remember, this is a story we never hear about anymore. Remember the story of the cricket and the ant? I grew up on that, right? You know, we all saw that little Disney flick with the cricket and the ant. Ant worked all summer, and winter came, and he's snug as a bug in his home, and he's got plenty to eat, and it's warm and it's happy. And there's the cricket freezing to death outside. Right. He didn't do jack shit all summer.
Fucking cricket.
Fuck the cricket. And do you guys remember that story? Wait, you're younger than I am.
No, I actually do remember that.
Yeah, I knew of that story.
Yeah, for us, it was like that was something that everybody heard because that's how life was. Nowadays, you know, if that happens, the government steps in, fines the ant because the ant refused to give the cricket his fair share, and then next thing you know, the cricket's living in the ant's house, and the ant is in jail. You know, that's the modern story. You know, as a tongue-in-cheek way of looking at it. So we've lost that work ethic as something to be honored. Instead, you're a working stiff. You're a bum. You know, you're kind of a
you're a poor schlub who.
Yeah, you're a schlub.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the best way to say it.
I mean, and in a way, it was kind of like it used to be a little over idealized. Fathers knows best, but now it's Al Bundy, and that's bullshit too. Well, actually, I think Al Bundy's looking pretty good in comparison to some of the more modern characters.
Dude, I fucking loved Married with Children. That show was great.
Well, did you ever watch Last Man Standing?
Last Man Standing was entertaining as well.
I really liked that show, and when they canceled it, I was pissed, but it's back now.
I'm usually more into cop shows, so it's kind of like, not only that, I knew people like Bundy, so I'm like, nah, I know, I watch this.
You're like, I live this. I don't need to watch it on TV. Yeah, I really like that show too, and I do think that there is part of our society that, like, things are good, and so we take for granted like how good it is. Like, we can just go to the grocery store whenever we're hungry and get a fucking pizza or whatever.
Well, think about it. Food, you pay more in taxes than you do for food and clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
sounds right.
That's sick. And it used to be 90% of your earnings went to just keeping yourself alive, as in, I got to eat. And you scrape together just enough money every year to maybe buy a pair of shoes, but you walked around barefoot most of the time because you didn't want to wear your shoes out.
Yeah, now we just go buy another pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Exactly. All of those necessities are uber cheap. That's part of the benefit of the globalization.
Damn capitalism, making shit cheap.
Yeah, telling you. Yeah, let's put it this way: the unions owe their life to capitalism.
Oh, sure.
You know, and when did the capitalist become the enemy? Because without him, you don't got a freaking job.
When we started teaching Marx as the more often than any other economist.
Oh, you mean, and now we have people like Cortez getting elected to Congress who actually think this is a good idea and are serious about it.
Yeah.
I still have, call me like an optimist, but I still have faith in like the American people. Like, they know communism's a bad idea.
I don't.
The younger people, maybe not, but I'm hoping that things will wake up.
Let's put it this way. When we elected Obama the first time, I was like, fine, I'll try anything once. But when we reelected him after he proved himself to be so abysmal, I mean, think about it. The press covered for him in every way it could, and he still sucked. Whereas the guy we got in office now, the press is out to kill him, and he's only as bad as Obama.
Yeah.
that tells you how bad Obama was.
Well, I always hear.
We elected the guy. That was when I lost faith in the American public.
Obama didn't have any scandals when he was in office, or his biggest scandal was that he didn't know what tie to wear, or something ridiculous. And I'm like, really? Like Benghazi? Fast and Furious, using the IRS
as your own
crack down on conservative nonprofits.
People for making movies you don't like.
Eric Holder being in contempt of Congress and nothing happening.
It's like, almost 11 o'clock, guys. I think
this is a good. I was about to say I was going to jump out of here.
It's a good time to stop.
Let's stop, guys. Great conversation.
Absolutely.
I'll see you in a week.
See you later, man. We'll do this again next week. All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.